A minute.
The hello? Coming in clear?
Hello.
Okay, cool. Thanks for having me on.
Hi. Good. How are you?
Good, you?
I'm pretty good.
Yeah, so I guess my question is what makes MAGA a mental disorder?
So this is literally rage bait. I have to say this a lot during my lives. This is rage bait to get Republicans to argue and to join and to be like, this, "Urgh." So it like fires them up to come up here, get the confidence to come and make a fool of themselves. Because then they're like super angry about the fact that this is behind me, and then can't remember their points or make false points.
No, I mean, if that's just a tactic and you don't actually have an actual argument for that, then I guess we just move on then. But,
Yeah, this ignore this. This is literally a tactic for views, engagement, and people to join.
okay, gotcha. Yeah, so I guess what's kind of like your big things against Trump? We're gonna work from there.
So I've explained this multiple times. It really sucks to have to repeat, but I'll repeat a couple of them. He's racist, and one of the main things that shows that is that he signed an executive order to remove the DEI. Is
Mm-hmm.
that what it
Yeah.
is? DEI? Yeah, which includes the Equal Employment Opportunity Act, which does not allow people to be discriminated upon based on gender, um, sexual orientation, race, age, things like that, religion, etc.
Yeah.
Which then also goes into sexism. Within that, he also himself is in support of a national abortion ban. No matter what he says now, he has always been in support of a national abortion ban. The president does not have the power for that. I do understand that. However, that does not mean that he does not support it. Through that, he also does not support um, any sort of contraceptives, including birth control. He himself took down the reproductivehealth.org website, um, gender affirming care, which includes things such as hair transplants for men who are balding. Elon Musk just got one. Liposuction, breast augmentations, Viagra, um, any sort of medication that can help with um, raising testosterone if you're a male with low testosterone, or raising estrogen if you're a female with low estrogen. Through that can also include birth control because birth control does affect your hormones, things such as that. So those are three things that I'm very, yeah.
Okay. Well, I think what ties all three of them together is that these are rights you feel like are being violated by Donald Trump and his administration, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
I guess my first question is what constitutes a right? Like, how do you define what a right is?
If it's in the Constitution, it's a right. If it's outlined in the Constitution, in amendments made recently, in anything where it is on government websites.
Well, if it's just what the government defines as a right, that's kind of changing constantly. The Constitution's, there used to be only the
Things
10
things
amendments. I
that
believe it's
don't
27
allow
now.
things that don't allow people to be harmed. Laws put in place to keep people from being harmed and discriminated against are definitely rights.
Well, those weren't rights until the 1960s in terms of
Right, just
discrimination.
like how women couldn't vote until a certain time. So
That's
if you're
exactly
gonna
my point.
say, so do you
I
believe
feel
that women
like,
shouldn't be allowed to vote?
well,
Well, no.
to
I'm just trying
answer
to find a definition of what a right is.
Right. So
a
you know
And
human
what a
if
right,
you're
right
going
is.
by what the
You know
government
what a right
is, then
is.
yeah,
You're
you
just
just
trying
made
to
my
dance
point.
around. You're just trying to dance around, trying to
No.
figure out a way to
well,
try and make
my
something look stupid.
my answer to what a human right is someone that's people are entitled to regardless of their background. That is a basic human right.
And so, like freedom of speech, for example, would be a right.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, freedom to bear arms. Yeah, okay. I'm just trying to figure out what you
Speech,
guys are
however,
coming
does
from.
have its limitations
Regardless,
for the
well,
safety
because
of
I'm not going
people.
to say I tie my rights into my government because obviously they do try to take rights away. So I just say what basic people deserve, regardless of who you are.
And yeah, I guess my next question is, how do we know that we, as human beings, deserve these rights?
Well, I don't think anyone should be discriminated against because they're black or because they're Muslim or because they're gay. I don't think someone should be told, hey, you can't do this because you look like that. Why would that be right in any world?
Well, I just hypothetically, I'm not saying this is my position, but why would that be wrong? Like, I'm just trying to figure out, like, where do you draw this idea of human rights from? That makes sense. Like, what's your justification
Because I
for it?
don't think anybody should be separated or put against people like someone is better than the other person.
I mean, that's
When
kind of
we're all
circular,
people at the
don't you
end of
think?
the day.
It's kind of circular. Like you're basically saying, I don't want people being discriminated against because I don't want people being discriminated against. Like,
Okay,
that's
so I'll step in here
yeah, of course.
because you are having an attitude within the way you're speaking, and I don't like people speaking to a very close friend of mine
No, it's fine. He's
over
just
over human rights. So why people should not be discriminated against is because that causes harm to them. It causes harm. It can cause physical, emotional, and mental harm to them.
So are you more like a consequentialist then?
What do you mean by that?
Basically, you judge an action by the consequences it has.
By what it can do to other people, not by the legal consequences, not by anything in that sort of way, by the effect that it has on other people.
Okay. So I guess my next question then, let's just look with AB for example. AB is one of the big reasons why the U.S. currently doesn't have a replacement level birth rate, or TFR technically. Right now, not just the U.S. but the whole world is set to experience a massive population crash. And one of the reasons is because of the rapid expansion of AB as a human right, considered as a human right. How are we going to prevent this population crash from happening, which is going to have devastating effects upon various national economies worldwide? Uh,
You understand that forcing people to have children, having a child does not affect a man. Having a child affects a woman, and that's exactly why it should be up to a woman whether or not she's going to have an abortion. Having a child has devastating effects on the female body. It can cause death. Yet, there are men who believe that they should be allowed to tell women whether or not they can have kids and whether or not they are allowed to decide if they want to have kids. A crashing birth rate is due to the pure disrespect that men have towards women, as well as the fact that the world's economy is in the shitter. People cannot afford to live in most places, especially in the United States, where inflation has risen by a large amount and our wages have not kept up. I can look up the percentages and all of the um, facts with that for you if you would like.
I mean, I'm just doing some quick research right now, and like for example, with economies which you would say are in the shitter, I think we both agree. India, for example, probably isn't the economy doing so well. It's a third world nation. You would agree with that at least, right?
I'm sorry?
Like for example, like India, for example, it would be an economy we could both agree with. Probably not doing so well. It's a third world nation, developing nation. There's still, many issues they have to tackle before they become a first world nation. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Well, then how come do they have a higher TFR or total fertility rate of 2.01 births per woman than the U.S., which is 1.66 according to the World Bank?
Because it costs way less to live there, as well as the labor of young children being legal there.
Well,
Young children go out and do labor is legal. Having young children work is legal. And so when you live in a place where most people have land or communities that they are able to live in, mind you, a lot of the times without a large charge like what we have in the United States. The cost of living is so much lower there. And so is their wages, what they are paid. But it's the fact that their wages are more keeping up with the inflation and the changes in prices than the United States is.
I mean that's I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. The Indian rupee is about I could do the exact. Let me actually look up the exact rate of exchange between one Indian
Right,
rupee
right.
versus
So it's
U.S.
not the
dollar.
rate of exchange. It's not the rate of exchange. It's how much they're being paid.
Yeah, well,
Such
also
as yen. Yen does not have a very high exchange rate. However, they're not getting paid So I would say the average person in Los Angeles, where I was just living for about a year,
Yeah.
the average person there makes around 600 to 800 a week, right? Working a job making about $18 an hour, which is more of the average wage because the average wage is not the minimum wage. So making about their average wage, making about 600 to 800 a week. So then we calculate that. Let me do my math real quick because I'm not
You're
great.
you're factoring like cost of living and such, I assume, correct?
So listen to me. So that's about 3,200 a month
Yeah.
without taxes being taken out. So 3,200 a month with an apartment costing a minimum, mind you, a minimum of $1,650 a month without paying for the utilities.
Hmm.
So that is 3,200 minus 1,650 leaves you with $1,550. Now, the average you're going to pay for all of your bills in a month in Los Angeles is going to be about $500, leaving you with about $1,050, mind you, without taxes being taken out. So if we were to account for taxes, you'd probably be actually having about $700 being taken out, which leaves you with $350. So then with that $350, because you have to account for the extra cost of anything you're buying, you're doing groceries, which actually a month's worth of groceries is about $500, leaving you with $150 of debt. Not to factor in the gas prices, credit cards, loans that people may have, maintenance costs, clothing costs, all of that.
But that's still, I understand the point, and I don't necessarily disagree that that's definitely an issue with within the California economy. I lived in California a number of years myself, more in the San Diego area rather than the L.A. area, so it was a little cheaper. But regardless, though, like India, the reason why I brought up India, for example, is because they still have undeveloped roads where it's just dirt paths. They have one of the highest public defecation rates. There's a lot of really bad issues that they have to face. Um, and they have a pretty big homeless population, about 1.7 million officially. That I would imagine is probably higher with the the public defecation rates. You have like entire like cities. They basically again you can look all this up. They literally eat slop. I don't know how else to describe it. I don't mean that in a disrespectful sense. It's like literal slop. But yet, regardless of that, they still have a higher birth rate than America, and that's a massive issue for America. It's an issue for India too because we're both currently below replacement level, which is 2.1 births per woman. And
Okay.
again, one of the issues is AB on
So,
this.
so you're saying all of this without researching the fact that India is considered to be one of the lowest cost of living countries in the world, with the average monthly cost for a single person being about $335 US dollars,
I mean, if you
with
wanted
the
to,
average person's salary being about 382 US dollars.
well, what I want you to do is you can go on Google Street Views, pick basically any place in India, and you can understand why the cost of living is so low.
Right? So, but what
Because
you're
it,
saying, the birth rate is higher, and oh, they can't afford to live. That's not true. They are affording to live. And yes, it's undeveloped, but they have the money to survive. They have the money to survive that the United States does not.
yeah,
So your argument is therefore invalid.
it's not. It's
Your
not though.
argument is invalid.
It's not.
It is completely invalid.
No, it's not. It's not because one of the reasons why is because we don't have enough people who are working in the future, and that's because of lowering birth rates and a
How the
population crash is
hell
going to
is the
happen.
future impacting the stuff right now at this moment? It
Uh,
is not.
yes,
The
it is.
stuff
It already is.
has not happened. Therefore, the stuff happening now
It
is not.
it already is though. It already
It's
is
not being
though,
affected by the future. It's being
specifically
affected by the
because
past. It's not being affected by the future. It's being affected by the past.
let me make the
The
stop
future has
spurging
not
out. Stop
happened. Therefore,
spurging
it
out.
does not
Stop spurging
affect
out. Stop
the
spurging out.
present.
Calm down. Calm down. Let me make the argument. Let me make the argument.
So don't tell me to calm down on my own life. Don't
Well,
interrupt me.
I'm
And
trying to
don't
make a
make
point, and you
invalid
keep
points and
interrupting
then
me
try
every
to tell me
5
I'm
seconds.
wrong after proving it. Don't interrupt me. And then don't try to say that I'm wrong after I proved your argument to be invalid.
Well, this is a back and forth conversation, correct?
So when somebody is speaking, though, especially when it is their live, you don't go and interrupt them, and you don't tell them to calm down, and you don't tell them to be quiet. It is my live, so if I want to tell you to shut the fuck up, I can tell you to shut the fuck up. However, you cannot tell me to shut the fuck up on my own live. Not saying that you said those words, but you telling me to calm down or telling me to stop talking or trying to talk over me in my own live, not gonna happen. Your point was proven invalid. Instead of continuing to prove yourself invalid and trying to back up your invalid claim, just stop.
It's
Just move on to another point.
well, I'm not done arguing the point. Instead of saying it's done
Your
and
argument
moving
was already
on, it
proven
just
invalid, so we can move on from the point where
well,
you can leave.
but I'm not done with the point. That's not just because you say it's invalid doesn't mean you automatically win the debate. That's
So we're not.
you
I'm
see what I
not
mean?
saying that I won the debate. You can either
Do you
continue
want
to
to?
a different
I mean,
point within the. Listen. You can either move on to a different point within the argument, or I can drop you from the line.
Sure. If you want to move on, let's just move on then. If you don't
That's
want
what
to
I
make
tried to
this,
say
okay.
multiple times, and you kept
Okay,
interrupting.
okay, well, we'll move on. We'll move on.
So, what is another point that you would like to make, or
Yeah,
another
just
thing that
going
you would
back,
like to debate
just
about?
just going back to the justification of human rights, like you say, it's because it harms people if human rights are not uh, given out, correct?
Correct.
And then why? I guess from your perspective, then why is harming people a thing that we ought not to do? Like, what's your justification for that?
Morals, moral values. Rights are all based off of morals.
What morals then?
The moral that people are people and deserve life, deserve rights, deserve respect, deserve to not be discriminated against, deserve not to die because of who they are.
I mean, if that's the justification, that's like I said earlier, that's a circular argument. We need rights are good because they're moral. Morals are good because they provide rights. You see how that's circular?
So that was one of the many things. So you're only taking pieces. You're reminding me of that really fucking creepy guy that Dean was talking to, in the way that you constantly only take parts of conversations and then say, oh, here we go. And like somebody just said, you're providing a circular argument. You're saying that I'm providing a circular argument. However, you keep coming back to, well, what's a human right? What makes it a human right? What is a human right?
Yeah.
After we've already explained to you. So unfortunately, I don't want to continue this conversation because you're really fucking creeping me out, and all I can imagine is that guy's creepy ass smile. And I don't want to see that in my mind.
Wow, I'm not.
This is my live, so I can drop it.
I mean, you can't justify it. That's your prerogative.
I can drop it.
I mean, you can't justify it. That's your.
Stopped in the middle of the
crazy, bro.
sentence.
That's crazy.
Stopped in the middle of the sentence.
This one should be interesting because I've been seeing him go off in the comments for the last like
Oh,